Sarfati, and I'm live from Galilee, from Israel. I'm from my house. My little boy is not feeling well. Family's gone, and I'm the only one here. So I decided to take the graphics of this update and put it on our TV screen in the living room. But I'm saying that because there's a good chance you're going to hear takeoffs and landing of F-16s during this update. There's a lot going on today. Unfortunately, another terror attack in Samaria where two Israeli Jewish people were shot and killed by Palestinian terrorists. There's a manhunt right now going on, and hopefully those that are responsible will be caught. In the meantime, I just wanted to say also that the Iranians are upping their game with warfare and weapons that they are developing, at least according to what they say. Not only that they are developing hypersonic missiles, but they also developed cruise missiles, very sophisticated cruise missiles, and also, according to what they say, a new type of suicide drones that can be up in the air for over 35 hours. So quite a lot of things that they're trying to release right now in order to intimidate, I believe, Israel and the West, not to mess up with them. But hey, folks, this is a few days after we found out, or at least the Europeans and the UN believe that they found traces of uranium that is 84% rich, which means they're only 6% below the weapon grade uranium. Now, please don't be surprised. We've been saying here on Telegram, I always reported they already have the 90%. The 84% was just something that they wanted the West to find out in order to already understand that they are no longer in the 60% realm at all. I don't understand why, but the CIA believes that Iran is not there yet. I'm telling you, someone is not reading the writing on the wall. But never mind. Israel will have to deal with that somehow. I'm not sure how, but we'll have to up our game as well. But this is a special update on the war in Ukraine. And this is exactly why I put together this thing. We're exactly 1 year after this war started. I'll never forget, I just came back from the US, and that night that I landed here, the war began on February 24th. Deep into the night, Putin ordered his forces to invade from the north, from the south, and from the east. Invading from the Donetsk and Lugansk from the east, invading from Crimea from the south, and from Belarus after they pretended to have some military exercise there with the Belarusian army. Within days, what days? Hours, they were already in the region of the outskirts of Kiev from the north, but something went wrong there, and we'll talk about that in a few seconds. So let's pray and then dive into this super important update. Father, we thank you for your word, for your promises, for who you are, for your love, for the salvation extended to the whole world 2,000 years ago in the person of Jesus Christ that gave us not only hope, but life, way, and truth. There is no other life, no other way, no other truth but him. And anyone who wants to be saved, anyone who wants to have eternal life, anyone who wants to understand the schemes of the devil and understand that he is loved by you, he needs to believe in you. He needs to believe, and he will have eternal life. Father, we also pray that you will also help us understand the events in this world in light of your word and your promises. We thank you that we're not looking into things in order to be discouraged, but actually to be greatly encouraged that our soon gathering to be with you is literally around the corner. We thank you and bless you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. So again, shalom. This is Amir Tsarfati, and this is February 26th, Sunday, and I'm going to broadcast it late enough not to hurt or be on the way of any church services in the United States. Of course, it will be way after those in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Asia, Europe, Middle East, or South America. So again, it should be around 6 p.m. Central Pacific time. It's 4 a.m. Israel time as we premiere this one. So watch this, folks. We are going to go through this amazing event that is going on for the last 12 months. Let's face it, all of us were greatly invested into it for the first 6 months, and so much that has happened in the last 6 months took our attention from the Ukrainian front and to other things, especially in the last few weeks with the unbelievable set of earthquakes that is still shaking the Middle East and area of Turkey and northern Syria, but as of the last few days, also off the coast of Lebanon and even in Egypt, literally all around us. So we are watching pandemics, we're watching wars and rumors of wars, we're watching earthquakes in unprecedented frequency and intensity, and therefore we're convinced that we are watching, feeling, and seeing not only the day approaching, but the birth pangs that Jesus spoke of as the sign of the end times. But at the same time, we're greatly encouraged also because we know that we should be out of here very, very soon. Now, let me start with something that I need to take off my chest, something that a lot of people, from some reason, accuse me for. They say, Amir, why are you so anti-Russia and pro-Ukraine? I'm literally baffled by this thing because I'm not anti-Russia, pro-Ukraine. I'm anti a decision to invade into a sovereign country and kill over 100,000 soldiers and between 20 to 40,000 civilians, obviously. Some people are telling me, well, Amir, Russia is fighting against Nazis. They're fighting against, the New World Order, all of this thing. This is crazy because, first of all, I know this QAnon theories because they're very anti-Semitic in their nature as well. So obviously I know many sides of all of this. But I will tell you that if this is the logic, that any country that has labs of some germs and any countries that has some neo-Nazis should be invaded and destroyed, well, in that case, America should be the first. America should be the first to be invaded. There is no more neo-Nazis in America than in Europe and Ukraine combined. There's more labs in America funded by American institutions or labs around the world funded by Americans. So if that's the logic, then why wouldn't you invite Putin to invade into America or into other West European countries? So the notion that Putin has the right to do it because Russia should clean that area from the progressive New Age, New World Order, all of that. This is baloney. I myself, I'm the first person to teach. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I am teaching about the Illuminati. I am teaching about the fact that there are, people that are pushing for the New World Order, people that are behind most of what we see. I am absolutely 100% on the same page with that. But to say that Russia had the right to do all of this just because of that, it's wrong to begin with. Because you're basically losing your argument simply because Ukraine is not the only country in the world that has been waving the flag of progressive liberalism and Western, declining morals. That's it. Western Europe is way more ungodly. America is way more ungodly. So, I mean, with all the respect, this is not why I think we should hooray this war. Now, but let me tell you now why I understand why Putin did that. I don't necessarily agree, support, but I understand. Now, watch this. First of all, regardless of the fact that Ukraine was once part of the Russian Empire, regardless of the fact that Kiev used to be the capital of the Russian Empire at some time, regardless of the bad blood between the countries for many, many years, let's talk about what happened since 2014, because this is what most of us can relate to. So starting from 2014, there was a revolution in Ukraine. The pro-Russian leader was ousted, and then came the pro-Western leaders, one after the other. For the most part, most of them were more corrupt than the ones before. But what bothered Putin is, now, watch this, and listen all the way so you understand my point, okay? It's very easy to attack, but it's very hard to listen. So let's try to listen. Let's try to understand how Putin thinks. Putin says, NATO is still going on, even though the Cold War is over for the last 30 years. NATO is still there. Obviously, they're against Russia. That's how he thinks. And then he says America is using Ukraine as a launching pad for anti-Russian operations. NATO is looking at, even though Ukraine is not a member of NATO, NATO is behind every move of Ukraine. And in fact, this war proves to Putin what he suspected, that NATO is the engine behind the Ukrainian development of their army and intelligence and all of that. It is NATO or American satellites, it's American troops, it's American leaders or guides that are training. So he's been watching and seeing this for the longest time. Now let me tell you something. Israel, I'm trying to give you an analogy so you understand how he thinks. Israel is striking almost every week Iranian targets in Syria. You can come and say, how come Israel, a sovereign country, is attacking another sovereign country when that country is not attacking you? It's very simple. Iran wants to destroy Israel. Iran is advancing, entering into our neighboring country and doing there whatever they want, entrenching themselves and preparing for, with missiles and drones and dirty bombs and all of that. Therefore, Israel has the right to defend itself. So Israel is attacking and invading from the air in order to eliminate those threats. Remember the Russian missiles crisis in Cuba? Remember the fact that Russia never attacked America, but Russia brought Russian missiles close to America. That was enough for America to almost declare war. My point is very clear. Countries do not tolerate a growing danger from a third party using their neighbors. This is how it works. Putin has been warning NATO for years and for the longest time in the last 2 months before the war to clear their presence from his borders. That's all he said. Not only that they refused, but they actually did not believe that he is about to really attack. They warned against an attack, but they did not really believe, or else they would have prepared, Ukraine even better. So this is the logic. The logic is clear. Putin is looking at Ukraine as a breeding place for other people to act against America, against Russia, and brainwashing the Ukrainians that are on the western part of the country, including the government. That's why he believes, the way Putin talks is from 2014, Ukraine turned Nazi. That's how he says. Now remember, as long as there was a pro-Russian president in Ukraine, he never called them Nazis. They were allies. They were parts, almost same blood. But from the moment a third party is involved, from the moment American politicians almost raped Ukraine, American politicians were invested in Ukrainian gas companies. This is exactly what President Trump was almost impeached because he wanted to investigate this whole thing. Remember that. And of course, they tried to impeach him for asking the Ukrainian president to investigate that very thing, the deep involvement, which is, basically bribery to sitting U.S. vice president, which is today the president, and his family. So all of that, you have to understand, Putin has been watching it, he's been warning against it, and eventually acted accordingly. Now, whether you appreciate it or against it, that doesn't matter. That's how he thinks, and that's how he acted. I believe that Putin was deceived by his own generals. I believe that Putin was getting bad advices, because let's face it, if his commanders would have advised him to hit Kiev, only Kiev, and level that palace and that area, most likely they would have won the war. Why? Because you would have, in a way, eliminate the leadership of the military and of the country. But from the moment the special forces of the Russian army faced unprecedented resistance from the Ukrainian civilians in Kiev, everything changed. From the moment Russia retreated, and I'm going to show you now a video that is 45 seconds long of a 1 year long war. And take a look at the map. Take a look at how originally they came from the north and south and the east, and how they retreated from the north, a little bit from the south, and most of the war is now on the east and the southeast. Take a look at this video right now. So now you understand, most of the last few months were on a smaller scale. It's a more of a war of attrition, and this is where unbelievable losses are happening right now, with triple digit on both sides, almost on a daily basis. It's quite unbelievable. So I wanted to talk to you first about few topics when it comes to that war. First of all, let's talk about military losses. Okay, military losses. So when it comes to military losses, there's two schools of thoughts. One, that the Russians lost 180,000 soldiers and Ukraine 100,000. Others are actually a bit more accurate. I believe that almost both lost 150,000 soldiers. For the Ukrainians, most of the last 50,000 are of the last few months. They've been losing many in the Bakhmut area, and it's unbelievable, cannon fodder. But I want you to know that when it comes to military losses, the Soviets lost 15,000 in 10 years in Afghanistan, and they lost 150,000 in 1 year in Ukraine. This is a disaster Russia has not seen for decades. When it comes to the Russians, they're not only hiring their own soldiers, but they recruited their own paramilitary group called the Wagner Group, and they're recruiting inmates from jail and promised them that after they are fighting, and if they're still alive, they will be released and even receive some money to start new life. And so for someone, the choice between rotting in jail in Russia or fighting, giving your best, trying to survive, and then starting new life, it's a pretty easy choice. And that's how they do it. But these are not trained soldiers, and therefore, most of the time, they are being sent to impossible missions where you are actually securing your death almost in 80 to 90%. Civilian lost, folks, civilian lost. This is a tragic thing, although on the Russian side, there's hardly any, because it's not the Russian territory that is under attack, it's the Ukrainian one. Ukrainian civilian losses, anything between 20 to 40,000 civilians that died, almost 250,000 have been wounded. But of all of them, 400 are children that were killed. And Kiev says that 30% of Ukrainian territory has been contaminated, which means the loss of not only places, but also the loss of land is quite amazing. Now, when it comes to war crime, we have to be very careful, because there's conflicting stories. The very sure ones that no one can deny. There's the Bucha massacre that happened in April of 2022, where in the suburbs of Kiev, in the northwestern suburb of Kiev, in Bucha, we're talking about hundreds of people that died, and in one street alone, when journalists were allowed in, they found it's all civilians. Some of them had their hands tied behind their back, were shot in the head, and women and children. It was tragic. In other case, in the city of Kramatorsk, in the train station, where thousands were crammed in order to try to leave on the next train, a Russian rocket hit, a missile hit, and 57 civilians died instantly. Also, in the city of Mariupol, there was a hospital that was destroyed. There was a theater that was destroyed. Hundreds of people died during those single attacks. And then, of course, around, probably they say, 16,000 children were actually deported forcibly to Russia. Children that either lost their parents or were taken away from their parents. 16,000 children forcibly deported to Russia or Russian-controlled territories in Ukraine. I'm a foster child. I know what it means to grow up without your parents. I know what it means to grow up without people to whom you belong. This is a great tragedy. So this war is going to affect lives of so many more people. They say that of the 8 million refugees, most of them are women and children, because most of the men were forced to stay. If you're in the age of 16 to 60, you needed to stay behind and fight in the war. You couldn't leave. So it's mostly women and children or older people. And of those young women, thousands were now sex slaves and human trafficking, and this is a tragedy that will affect so many people for so long time. 1,500 kilometers front line. This is almost 10,000 miles of front line. So at first, Putin only sent 100,000 soldiers, but they were lost there. And then he recruited many more, and finally created a line of defense. But in the very beginning, many of them lost their way. Many of them were trapped. The Ukrainians know their country. The Russians don't know that country. Now, let me make it very, very clear. When it comes to the economy, the Western countries wanted to believe that the Russian economy is going to be cut in 10 to 20%. Some even say in more than that. But in reality, and they will not tell you that, in 2022, the Russian economy was cut in only 2.2%. And in 2023, the forecast is for the Russian economy to grow 0.3%. It's interesting because more than Europe affected or changed Russia, Russia affected and changed Europe. It is in Europe that they fight for jobs, in Europe that the real estate is falling. It's in Europe that countries are toppled. It's in Europe that energy is tripled. It's in Europe that they're suffering now and scrambling to find new sources of energy. And what about military aid? Ukraine, without military aid, Ukraine would have been destroyed a long time ago. Ukraine is receiving aid from NATO, from America directly. Sometimes it's good equipment, sometimes actually old equipment. And the Ukrainians are uploading everything on the internet, so you can actually see how they complain that they get rusty equipment. I have tons of videos of that. Another thing that you want to know is that for the first time, the world is considering equipping Ukrainians with F-16s or fighter jets. You have to understand that so far the world was not even sure if they will give them tanks, and only now in the last few days the first German-made Leopard tanks crossed the border from Poland and entered into Ukraine, and now they're sent all the way to Bakhmut to fight over there. Again, President Zelensky requests F-16 fighter jets, but so far the U.S. is not really, allowing that. Now, let's make it very, very clear. Those who wanted to destroy Russia failed. If anything, look what happened. The war in Ukraine created a bipolar world with two groups, those that are for and those that are against. Those that are with Russia and those that are completely cutting themselves off from Russia. And make no mistake, Russia today is having a new status. It's a status of no longer just a country that was once a superpower, but they are branding themselves as an aggressive military superpower. It actually created its own camp with Iran and China, at least in China partially, North Korea, Belarus, and more collaborations with some Arab countries, such as obviously Syria, but also in Saudi Arabia, believe it or not, Algeria, Egypt, and others. Some other African countries and South American countries, especially Venezuela, which is not that far away from the United States. So as far as the Russians are concerned, Russia is back to what Russia wanted to be, a leader of big alliances, and they actually want to send to the moon another vehicle, a robotic vehicle to the moon. So it's quite an interesting thing. Now, will Russia invade into other countries? Interesting. Transnistria is the area of the separatists in Moldova, and right now we hear about a Ukrainian intention to somehow, maybe invade or be on the border there between, on one side, it's Moldova and obviously Romania. On the other side is, of course, Ukraine and Russia. Well, and then Transnistria is right, a little sliver of land. The Russians are plotting on going in there and manning that area to create a clear buffer between Ukraine and the West. Poland is a little nervous right now, and at least on the border with Kaliningrad, which is a Russian enclave, the Polish government just barricaded it right now. They may not tell you that they are nervous, but they certainly are, and we know that the Polish understand both America and Europe will not start a World War III just to defend Poland. They all know that. They've been there before. Many of those East European countries remember what happened in the shameful Munich agreement with Hitler. They remember that the West tried to appease Hitler by giving him some pieces of the Czech Sudetian mountain, and of course, eventually, it wasn't enough, and he invaded, and nobody helped them. So they all understand that as well. A lot of people are asking me, Amir, will Russia use a nuclear weapon? Well, one thing for sure, Russia just pulled out of the agreement for minimizing the use of and the production of nuclear weapon. This START, S-T-A-R-T, and for the first time since the war started, basically the telephone between the nuclear elements in Russia and America has been completely cut. And that's it. Russia is now reserving its rights to use or do whatever it thinks it's going to defend her. I think that if Putin will think that his life is in danger, he might order something. And I know that you don't have to send a nuclear bomb that will destroy Europe or America. All you need is a tactical nuclear weapon that will send, some radiation to just a few miles around, and that will send the message. And you can actually have a false flag. You can actually say that the Ukrainians did that or somebody else did that and accuse them. And we know that they're masters in manipulation. The US military aid exceeds the cost of Afghanistan. We know that $46.6 billion was already given between 2022 and 2023. And we also know that it's more than 10 years in Afghanistan, where 43 billion was actually spent there. Quite amazing. It's a war that America has never been part of, unlike Vietnam, Iraq, Korean War. This is a war America is not there, and America is spending more money than where America used to be. I don't know if there is an end to that war, but I do know that and this is where I have to be very clear. I do think there is a biblical significance to that war. Now, make it very clear. Most of the wars around the world are not mentioned in the Bible. In fact, Bible prophecy is not about countries and the way they treat each other. Bible prophecy is about other nations and the way they treat Israel. So whatever and however those wars affect Israel, that's when Bible prophecy is kicking in. I would tell you this: when it comes to Israel, unfortunately, I would say Israel benefits more than anyone else from that war. And when I say unfortunately, is that we never intended it to be. But let me give you four points. Yes, we're not happy with the Iranian-Russian alliance right now. Of course, it's not good for us. But it's not like Iranian and Russians didn't have connection before. Remember that. But in a bipolar world right now, when there's so many countries are rallying around either Russia or America and Ukraine, it seems like for America, Israel is way more important right now, especially with the gas that we found, especially with our strategic location right here. So in a way, I don't think the American administration wants Israel to fail. Unlike the disaster of the 44th president, the 46th president is much more cautious when it's come to Israel. And so I'm just telling you that we are watching that happening. The gas and the oil industries of Israel have never been more sought after as they are right now. When we first wanted to take the gas out of the land, out of the sea, everybody laughed at us. They said, who are you going to sell it to? I mean, Russia sells to most of the world, and your gas will not be worth the while. And look, today we're talking about countries that are standing in line to buy oil and gas from Israel. But another thing, the Israeli military industry is blooming like never before. Countries all around the world understand that even alliances such as NATO will not defend them. They all understand that if they will not have their own military, such as Germany, for example, they may lose a future war. And therefore, everybody's rushing now to build his own army. And Israel sold in $12 billion military equipment in 2022, and it continues to go. But maybe the most important thing, which has biblical significance, is the fact that 75,000 people immigrated to Israel in 2022, most all of them from Russia or Ukraine. So what happened there caused the Jews to leave and finally come to Israel. We're expecting 100,000 in 2023, and this is a very high quality manpower that can enter into the Israeli market and work. And quite a few things, quite an amazing thing, I think, that the Jews are returning, Israel's status is rising, and all of that plays an amazing significant role in the coming Ezekiel war. Today, I just found out that the foreign ministry of Russia announced that there's going to be a meeting of the foreign ministers of Russia, Turkey, and Iran, with including the Syrian one. But the Syrian one has nothing to say because all the other three control it. But this is the alliance that we've been talking about. This is the alliance that we've been watching growing, the Ezekiel 38 alliance. And together with the returning of the Jews to the land, you can obviously understand that something big is indeed happening. So yes, there is biblical significance to what is going on. The ripple effect of the war there is something that is affecting the status of Israel in the eyes of the world, the financial status of Israel within, and of course, the return of the Jews back to the land. This is it. I gave you a long update on the war in Ukraine. 1 year. We'll never know how it's going to end. One thing for sure, it doesn't look like it's going to end very soon, and I can tell you this. The Ukrainian stand is a maximal one, which means they want everything, even the territory before 2014, which means they want Crimea, Donetsk, and Lugansk. They want everything. No one thinks they will ever get Donetsk, Lugansk, and Crimea. Russia will never give it to them. So obviously, if that's your starting point, if this is what you want at the end of the war, you'll never really have it. I think that the Americans are speaking in two different voices. On one hand, they understand that his country will support Ukraine as much as possible, but he never thought it will last that long, of course. And there's a growing voice in the U.S. Congress against the blanche card, the checks that are being written to the Ukrainian government all the time. Again, the Republicans are not happy. $130 billion that were already promised. This is something they believe should be invested in America, not in any other place around the world. And again, a lot of countries are under a lot of pressure with what the Russians might be doing themselves. So Europe is not going to do well. Add to that the earthquakes that are hitting, add to that the falling economies, add to that the uncertainty in the markets, and of course you're getting a very interesting future in the immediate future, of course. And in the meantime, even in Israel, there's a lot of anarchists that are trying to come against the sitting government right now because of the judicial overhaul of the government of Benjamin Netanyahu, an overhaul that is due It's about time that the Supreme Court will understand its power and its position and not reach beyond. Israel is the only country in the world where the judges appoint judges. It's the only country in the world where the Supreme Court is ordering the government what to do and what not to do, and is looking into laws and completely annulling some of the laws that the Knesset legislated. So all of this has to come to an end. Most of the Israelis believe that that's the right direction, but there's a lot of people, not a lot, but there's enough people that are loud enough to go to the street and paint what's going on here as the end of democracy, whereas actually we want democracy back. We want the people to rule. We want people to rule. We vote for the parliament. The parliament is legislating, and the government is executing. The executive branch and the legislative branch are not below the judiciary branch. This is not how it should be. And so again, there's a lot of stuff going on here as well, which the Arabs take advantage of. For them, they don't think Israel will make it to 80. They think that we're going to fall apart before. This is the thing everybody's talking about right now. We're celebrating 75 this year. Everybody's saying, with what's going on now, we doubt if Israel will make it to 80. This is the language the Arab, the radical Islamic world that is coming against us is using. So I hope the Israelis will come back to their senses. And of course, I pray that more and more will understand that our real hope is not in governments or military, not in presidents or prime ministers. Our real hope is in our Messiah, Yeshua. And Father, we pray that you will continue to reveal yourself to people. You will help us to fulfill our ministry, all of us, to share the gospel and to give the people the only source of hope and good news in this world, which is Yeshua and his work of salvation and the finished work on the cross. We thank you, Father, that we can understand the things that are happening in light of your word. We can see that the day is approaching. We can feel the birth pangs, and we are indeed lifting up our heads because our salvation, the salvation of the body, is drawing nigh. We thank you and we bless you. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yikuneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance towards you and give you his peace, his shalom, that surpasses all understanding, that only the Prince of Peace, who is the Lord of Peace, can give you now and forever, here and everywhere. His name is Yeshua, and he is our salvation. In his name we pray. Amen. Please look into my new book called Has the Tribulation Begun? The most evangelistic book I've ever written, and the one that will give you all the answers when it comes to what is going on around the world, and is it part of the tribulation? So much confusion. Let's avoid confusion and redeem our time in these last days. There's some great news that we want to share with you later on about the book, and we will do that on social media. Follow me on Telegram. I update it 24/7. Follow me on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Behold Israel. God bless you. Shalom. I love you. And these are the F-16s taking off right now. Thank you, and God bless you, and shalom. Bye-bye.
Join the Amir Sarfati and Behold Israel channel on Telegram. Here you will receive daily updates and audio messages from Amir. You can also take part in our community and reply with comments. Getting started is easy. Simply download Telegram from the App Store, then visit the Behold Israel Telegram channel in your browser. From there, click Preview Channel, then click Join. That's it. See you on Telegram.